June 21st here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with South Korea's condemnation of the Kim Jong-un-Vladimir Putin summit. Seoul slammed the two sides forging a deeper partnership and says it's considering supplying arms to Ukraine, which Putin says would be a big mistake. South Korea called for the UN Security Council to control real and present cybersecurity threats head-on as the Council's rotating president. Thursday's meeting marked the first official UNSC meeting on cybersecurity since June 2021. South Korea remains off a U.S. list of countries to have their foreign exchange policies monitored for the second straight time. Included in the latest list were 7 countries, including China and Japan. After North Korea and Russia inked a deal to mutually assist each other in the event of an attack, South Korea says it'll re-examine the idea of weapons support for Ukraine. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young starts us off.
South Korea will consider sending weapons support to Ukraine and slap extra sanctions on Russia as it condemns the Kremlin's pact with North Korea to strengthen military and economic ties. National Security Advisor Jang Ho-jin on Thursday delivered the South Korean government's stance after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin met Wednesday in Pyongyang and agreed that in the event of war, they would provide one another with military and other assistance, with all means at disposal without delay. Jang said he sees any form of cooperation that provides direct or indirect support towards building up North Korea's military as a violation of United Nations Security Council sanctions, vowing a firm response.
Especially as a permanent member of the UN Security Council that led sanctions against North Korea, Russia's violation of its resolutions by supporting North Korea threatens our security and will inevitably harm Seoul-Moscow relations.
Since the outbreak of war in Ukraine in 2022, South Korea has maintained a policy of providing only humanitarian aid and non-lethal military supplies to Ukraine. Jang says the government will now reconsider that policy. A senior presidential official later told reporters he would not specify whether lethal weapons are being considered, but various options are being reviewed and will be revealed in time. Seoul also plans to strengthen its sanctions policy, targeting 243 new subjects, including 4 Russian ships, 5 organizations, and 8 North Korean individuals involved in weapons and oil exchanges between the two sides.
There are currently 1,159 items that are subject to export controls to Russia that have been used since the Ukraine war. But the government has decided to add 243 new items. So a total of 1,402 items will be subject to sanctions in the future.
Jang said the measures were decided during a regular National Security Council meeting after a review of Pyongyang and Moscow's Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Pact released on Thursday morning, but noted all specific details had not yet been fully grasped. While the North Korean leader declared the treaty raises their partnership to an alliance, the Russian president's more subdued remarks suggest otherwise. The treaty's controversial Article 4 on mutual assistance refers to their respective domestic laws, and Article 51 of the UN Charter that recognizes a state's right to self-defense. This suggests the current pact may not trigger an immediate Allied intervention as a mutual defence treaty would, according to a senior official. In any case, Seoul says it will firmly respond to any actions threatening its security in cooperation with the international community, and further reinforce the South Korea-US alliance and their trilateral cooperation with Japan to neutralise North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Meanwhile, the US State Department on Thursday said it welcomes any support for Ukraine in fighting Russia's aggression, but the question of supplying weapons is each country's decision to make. Washington also expressed deep concern over Putin's threat to supply Pyongyang with weapons as a response to support for Kyiv, warning that such a move would destabilize the Korean peninsula. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And Putin has warned South Korea that providing lethal weapons to Ukraine would be a big mistake, and said that Russia might supply high-precision weapons to North Korea. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells us more.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that it will be a very big mistake if South Korea provides lethal weapons to Ukraine and that Russia will respond if it does. According to TASS and Sputnik news agencies, President Putin made this statement during a press conference in Hanoi, Vietnam on Thursday as he concluded his tour of North Korea and Vietnam. On the same day, South Korea's presidential office said it would reconsider the issue of providing weapons to Ukraine, criticizing the treaty and the comprehensive strategic partnership signed between North Korea and Russia. So far, the South Korean government has maintained a principle of not supplying lethal weapons to Ukraine. Regarding the North and Russia signing the treaty, Putin said there's nothing new compared to the ones signed in the 1960s and that South Korea does not need to worry as the military assistance only applies when either one is attacked. Putin also mentioned that Moscow has not asked Pyongyang for any support for a special military operation in Ukraine. However, he added that Russia is currently monitoring the situation as Ukraine's attacks on the border area of Belgorod with Western long-range weapons are considered an invasion. He also said that Moscow does not rule out providing Pyongyang with high-precision weapons in response to Western countries providing weapons to Ukraine. The Russian president said that while the crisis on the Korean peninsula is heating up, he hopes the treaty with North Korea and Russia will have some deterrent effect. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
South Korea has presided over the first UN Security Council meeting on cybersecurity in 3 years. And Seoul's Foreign Minister Cho called for the council to confront cybersecurity threats head-on. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The UN Security Council on Thursday convened an official meeting on cybersecurity, as North Korea has been relying on illicit cyber activities to evade UNSC sanctions and general revenue to fund its nuclear and missile programs. The meeting is seen as being significant, given rising tensions on the Korean peninsula. Marking the first official UNSC meeting on the issue since June 2021, South Korean Foreign Minister Cho presided over the meeting as the Council's rotating president. There, he said the Council must confront real and present cybersecurity threats head-on, while stressing the UNSC's role in the fight.
The linkage of cyber threats and international peace and security is evident, and the Security Council has a key role to play in addressing cyber threats to fulfill its primary responsibility for maintenance of international peace and security.
Cho said the cybersecurity threat posed by North Korea is nothing new, noting that the regime systematically evades sanctions adopted by the UNSC and challenges international non-proliferation through its illicit activities. The minister cited a report of the expert panel of the Security Council's North Korea Sanctions Committee, which found that North Korea has procured 40% of the funds for the development of weapons of mass destruction through illegal cyber activities. For the UNSC to tackle cyber threats, Cho put forward a three-step approach of diagnosis, prescription, and treatment to respond to cybersecurity-related issues. South Korea, the United States, and Japan hosted an informal UNSC meeting in April on North Korea's evolving cyber threats. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Nvidia became the most valuable company in the world on Tuesday, beating Microsoft. How big will it grow? We're joined by Professor Kim Se-won this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today.
Professor, for those of us who may still not be too familiar with this firm, walk us through what this company is about and why it's become so big.
Nvidia is basically a chip designing company. They produce their chips through collaboration with TSMC of Taiwan. This company pioneered the development of GPUs, or graphics processing units. The GPU actually revolutionized computer graphics. Their GPUs became essential for gaming, professional visualization, and other graphics-intensive applications. Recently, Nvidia became one of the most influential companies in global IT industries as artificial intelligence market quickly expands, represented by ChatGPT. The size of artificial intelligence industry almost doubles every year. And it turned out that NVIDIA's GPUs are highly effective for parallel processing, which is crucial for training artificial intelligence and machine learning models. Particularly, NVIDIA's GPU-based platform enabled AI developers to leverage GPU power for computational tasks beyond graphics.
So huge growth there and becoming the most valuable firm in the world, surpassing Microsoft and Apple. Although it was a brief one, still, what does that mean?
The economic interpretation of stock price is present value of future profit of that company. In this respect, we can say that NVIDIA's future profit will exceed those of Microsoft and Apple. In addition, NVIDIA is to become the most valuable firm in the world indicates a high level of investor confidence in NVIDIA's future prospects, reflecting strong expectations of growth, innovation, and profitability. NVIDIA's leadership in artificial intelligence and high-performing computing would be further intensified, potentially influencing more companies to adopt NVIDIA's technologies and platforms for their artificial intelligence and computational needs.
The AI momentum is indeed real, and some people say what makes NVIDIA excel is that it doesn't have, too much of competitors. Is that it?
Well, that is not actually true. While NVIDIA is a dominant player in several markets, it is not accurate to say that it doesn't have competitors. NVIDIA's success is not due to a lack of competition, but rather its ability to outpace competitors through continuous innovation and strategic positioning. For example, in graphic processing units, AMD is a significant competitor in the GPU market with its Radeon series. AMD has been a strong contender in both of gaming and professional GPU markets. Also, another big IT giant, Intel, has entered this discrete GPU market with its Intel Arc series, aiming to compete in gaming artificial intelligence.
Well, and I'm sure NVIDIA boom is something that local firms here in the country are closely following. Let's talk about that.
Yes, that is a very important point for Korean economy. To attract NVIDIA's attention, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, two major players in semiconductor industry, need to focus on strategic initiatives and collaborations that align with NVIDIA's interests and goals. Develop cutting-edge DRAM and NAND flash memory solutions that can support NVIDIA's high-performance GPUs and AI processors. Another very important part is that innovative in areas like HBM, high bandwidth memory, and other advanced memory technologies that complement NVIDIA's needs for faster data processing and greater memory bandwidth in GPUs. In providing better HBMs to NVIDIA, two domestic firms, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, are seriously competing these days.
Well, before I let you go, Professor Kim, I have to ask you, how big can NVIDIA get? I mean, some people say NVIDIA stock will reach that $10 trillion market cap by 2030. What's your take on this?
Well, that is a tough question. Actually, economics does not support to answer future stock price. But if I do my best guessing on it, NVIDIA's market value exceed $10 trillion until 2030 is a possible scenario. It also means that NVIDIA's market value triples in the next 6 years. But for this scenario, two important assumptions should be satisfied. The first is artificial intelligence industries grows over 50% per year until 2030. And the next assumption is that the NVIDIA's technological innovation advancement in artificial intelligence and machine learning continue, and its leadership in AI and machine learning is maintained until 2030.
All right, Professor Kim Se-hwan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As always, you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
South Korea has not been named on a U.S. Treasury Department list of countries to monitor their foreign exchange policies for the second straight time. The U.S. Treasury Department released its semi-annual report to Congress, a macroeconomic and foreign exchange policies of major trading partners of the U.S. on Thursday, which includes China, Japan, Taiwan, and Germany, among other countries. Countries are put on the list when they meet two of three criteria, including a bilateral trade surplus with the U.S. of at least $15 billion and persistent one-sided intervention in the foreign currency market. Now, South Korea had been on the list since 2016 until it was excluded from the last report published in November. President Yoon was back on the road again on Thursday to host a policy discussion after more than a month's pause due to diplomatic events. Now, the first stop was Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Gyeongsangbuk-do Province as Northeast Asia's manufacturing innovation hub. That was the topic of President Yoon Suk-yeol's 26th policy discussion with citizens on Thursday at the province's Yeongnam University. Among the many things that President Yoon pledged to make this happen were improvements to the underdeveloped transportation infrastructure.
교통 인프라 확충은 경북의 제조 혁신 허브로의 도약을 위해서 반드시 필요하고 또 도민들의 삶의 질 향상에도 필수적입니다. 먼저 사업계획 검토 막바지 단계인 3조 4천억 규모의 영일만 횡단 고속도로 건설을 빠르게 추진하겠습니다.
This would connect two different ports in Pohang, the nation's steel mill city on the east coast. It'll be 18 kilometers long and will contain bridges. On top of this, President Yoon has pledged to support the establishment of a 300 billion won, or around $260 million industrial complex for SMRs, or small modular reactors, in Gyeongju, another city in the province. The new type of nuclear energy technology is being sought after by countries around the world to get ahead in the technology, and President Yoon is looking to make Gyeongju the nation's SMR manufacturing hub. He also pledged to support the region's hydrogen energy production sectors, tourism, as well as agricultural business. Meanwhile, President Yoon praised the region for its history of providing a basis for the nation's economic success. The region is where the Saemaeul Undong came from, a community-driven development program in the 70s when it was still battling poverty, a movement that has been credited as making the miracle on the Hangang River possible. In fact, Yeongnam University has a department dedicated to studying the movement and international development, with many up-and-coming African young students coming to learn about it. This was brought up during the recent Korea-Africa Summit as well.
새마을 운동과 우리의 발전 경험을 학문화한 영남대의 새마을 학은 지난 한아프리카 정상회의에서도 각국 정상들에게 많은 관심과 주목을 받았습니다. 많은 국가의 리더들이 또 리더가 될 청년들이 이곳에서 국가 발전에 관한 공부를 하고 큰 기여를 했다는 얘기를 아프리카 각국 정상들에게 많이 들었습니다.
This 26th policy discussion was participated by around 100 government officials and citizens, including business leaders in hydrogen and nuclear energy, entrepreneurs, and local residents. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Good morning. I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn to stories from around the world. The Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte is set to become the next Secretary General of NATO following the withdrawal of the only other candidate in the race. 57-year-old Rutte officially became the only candidate left to replace the incumbent NATO chief, Jens Stoltenberg, after Romanian President Klaus Iohannis withdrew his bid at the end of last week. Stoltenberg's term as the chief of the military alliance expires in October, 10 years after he took office in 2014. Rutte, who served as the Dutch Prime Minister for almost 14 years, put his name down for NATO's top job in the wake of the collapse of his coalition government last summer. He is a fierce critic of the Russian President Vladimir Putin and has been actively promoting Europe's military support for Ukraine since 2022. Now moving over to India. At least 36 people died and more than 60 have been admitted to hospital as of Thursday after consuming illicit tainted liquor sold in the country's southern state of Tamil Nadu. According to a government spokesperson, since Wednesday, over 100 people have been suffering from stomach aches, diarrhea and vomiting and required medical treatment. Police arrested a 49-year-old man named as Govindaraj for producing and selling the illicit liquor, seizing some 200 litres of it. The Tamil Nadu state government has also suspended at least 10 officials, including the police chief and the district's collector. The illegally produced tainted alcohol is commonplace in India, where many cannot afford branded spirits. Last year, more than a dozen people died in a similar incident. Now to the US, where a wildfire in the state of New Mexico continued to burn out of control on Thursday, despite efforts from firefighters dropping water and fire retardant from the air and bringing in heavy equipment to construct fire lines. Local police said Wednesday there had been at least 2 fatalities, including one unidentified person found in the driver's seat of a scorched vehicle. The state's governor confirmed on the same day that over 1,400 structures, including homes, were destroyed in the southern part of the state. She also requested a major disaster declaration from President Joe Biden for the fires, which have burned up almost 100 square kilometers of land. The United Kingdom's King Charles and Queen Camilla attended Day 3 of Royal Ascot on Thursday, one of the highlights of the summer social calendar in Great Britain. The royal couple arrived in a carriage during the royal procession for the horse racing event, which was beloved by Charles's late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. The Royal Ascot horse racing event, usually highlighted by the spectators' traditional classic fashion, was founded in 1711 by Queen Anne. The popular luxury event held at the Berkshire Racecourse is expected to draw more than 250,000 spectators from all over the world and will run until Saturday.
Good morning. A scorching heat wave in central regions and Jeollabuk-do continues on this summer solstice. Parts of Gyeonggi-do, including Goyang, are under a heat wave warning, though. Southern provinces, meanwhile, got some nice relief yesterday, but afternoon highs returned right back to the 30s this afternoon. Then Seoul gets up to 34 degrees, Daejeon at 32 under mostly sunny skies with strong UV rays. But monsoon rain takes a break on Jeju today with a high of nice 28 degrees Celsius. But rain returns to Jeju early tomorrow, dropping up to 200 millimeters of heavy showers into Sunday. The south coast will also see downpours. Monsoon season also starts in southern parts of the country this weekend with 10 to 60 millimeters of showers expected for Gyeongsangbuk-do Provinces. It's not going to rain in the capital over the weekend, but showers will bring much needed heat relief to central regions. The new week starts on a rainy note in Seoul and Gangwon-do provinces. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We will be back next Monday at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's lying? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
We're here to bring a new type of news show. New insights, new styles, and new topics every single day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, June 21st here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today we're joined by Kwon Ji-hyun. Good morning. Good morning. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Now, as usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online over the past 24 hours. If you're living in Korea and a big fan of McDonald's French fries, here's some bad news. McDonald's Korea announced on Thursday that it won't be able to sell French fries temporarily due to unexpected supply chain issues. As a result, customers can't order a full meal, or set as it's called in Korea, but they will receive a medium-sized Coke with any burger purchase. While McDonald's Korea didn't specify when French fries would be back on the menu, they assure customers that they are working hard to resume sales of them as soon as possible. Now, this isn't the first time they faced such challenges. In 2021 and 2022, they had trouble importing potatoes due to maritime transportation issues during the COVID-19 pandemic. Moving on, staying in Korea, you'll be able to enjoy a week-long holiday for Chuseok, or Korean Thanksgiving, next year. The Korea Aerospace Administration announced next year's calendar specifications on Thursday. There will be a total of 68 holidays in 2025, the same as this year. Now, these holidays refer to Sundays and national holidays. For those who have a 5-day work week, you'll have a total of 119 days off. Finally, in sports news, the anti-discrimination charity Kick It Out, based in the United Kingdom, has taken action regarding Tottenham Hotspur captain Son Heung-min experiencing racial discrimination from his teammate Rodrigo Bentancur. The organization says it received numerous complaints about his comments and has forwarded these reports to the club and relevant authorities. The incident occurred when Bentancur was asked by a presenter on Uruguayan TV last week for Son's shirt, to which he replied, "Sonny's? It could be Sonny's cousin too, as they look all the same." Bentancur later apologized to Son on social media, calling his comments a very bad joke and insisting he would never disrespect or hurt him. Son responded on Thursday, saying that he has spoken to his teammate. He knows he made a mistake and said that he would never intentionally say something offensive. Now, Kick It Out stated that this issue highlights a broader problem that significantly affects East Asian and other communities. Now, how do you view Bentancur's comments? And I know that you guys have experience living abroad, so did you encounter similar situations like this?
Well, as a person who follows football very closely, I do know that this is not actually the first time a Uruguayan has been in trouble for racist comments.
Right.
Back maybe almost 10 years ago, there was a situation with Luis Suarez as well, on Patrice Evra, Manchester United player. Now, for this situation to happen, for Bentancur, I think it was a very, very silly move, because Son is the captain of Tottenham Hotspur. Even though that they have talked to each other, I still think it might affect the way that Bentancur is now used on the field. And like you said, I've been overseas before. Yes, I have unfortunately, dealt with discrimination, especially in the early 90s, being an 80s, 90s kid. Yeah, it's not great, obviously, but there's a lot of improvements where I grew up in Australia. It may be different for some people in other countries, but for me, it seems to be getting better.
Right. It's great to hear that things are getting better in certain countries. Hope to see that we could see these changes even more. Now, Jiyeon, I know that you have experience living in the United Kingdom, right? So
right.
how was your experience?
Well, I have faced racial discrimination in the UK when I was younger, and it was deeply hurtful, still hurtful. There were local residents who opposed our family moving into the neighbourhood in London. I have even been asked if Koreans only eat meat dog.
Really?
Yes. And at first it was kind of upset, but I stayed calm and responded calmly and explained everything accurately and truthfully. And handling racial discrimination requires resilience and a clear understanding of one's rights. And it's quite important to, educate others about cultural diversity and respectfully challenge misconceptions as well.
Right, and I think that this issue became even bigger because Bentancur is a public figure. He's a football star, so they should especially be more responsible with what kind of comments they make, especially on the media. And that was our news feed for this Friday. So now we're going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Today we're going to talk about a shopping trend that was once considered a niche activity but has now become mainstream. Now take a look at the screen to find out more.
Secondhand shopping, or thrifting, which started with people finding ways to repurpose and reuse items, has been around for a long time. Secondhand shopping soared in popularity during the two world wars and the Great Depression. Then, the 1950s and 60s were an era of secondhand clothing, with people trying to find unique, one-of-a-kind pieces affordably and sustainably. Thrifting saw a downturn during the 80s and 90s due to the rise of fast fashion, but fast forward to the present, it's made a comeback, especially among millennials and Gen Z. A survey done by one of the two major secondhand goods applications in Korea showed that 84% of its users were millennials and Gen Z. So, what's behind the younger generation's love for secondhand shopping?
Right, so the pie chart that we just saw shows how much our generation has become a major consumer at secondhand or thrift stores. So here in the studio, I want to start off by asking you guys, are you also a regular customer at these stores?
I am. I think I use them a lot.
I can tell.
Maybe every single day. I have many items actually listed on the secondhand trading sites currently. I usually buy things that aren't worth getting new, like kids' toys and baby products.
Right.
And because, you know, they have a short usage period. I have also bought Chill's books from secondhand sites. Buying a whole set of new books can cost hundreds of thousands of won. But on secondhand sites, I can get them cheaply from my neighborhood, which is great. And my hubby, my husband, he is into music as a hobby and trades on music-related used goods platforms, I think, every single day. And I guess he's become quite an expert in this field. He can now distinguish who's scammer and who's not on these sites. Yeah.
So I think that Juyeon's family has become an expert or an avid user of these secondhand platforms. Now to our other panelist, Walter, do you also use these stores regularly?
Personally, I don't use them, but like Juyeon mentioned, baby products are a common thing that goes in and out of your house quite frequently, because you think that maybe you could keep something for, especially clothes, for a long period of time. It's a couple of months and then you have to get them right out the door. So my wife sells a lot of baby products, also just anything that we don't need at the moment. But yes, like Juyeon's husband as well, my wife has become a bit of an expert where she knows exactly what to do. I don't think she gets the best price for them. I think whoever buys off her are getting a bargain. So if you really want to get a good bargain, just try and find my wife's ID and then maybe you can get something good. But for me, I really don't use these sort of applications, because I don't really buy a lot of things for myself, but when I do, it's usually tech. And when it comes to tech, I kind of want brand new stuff.
Right, because of the warranty and those services, right?
Exactly.
Right, but now the craze among millennials and Gen Z towards secondhand shopping has gotten bigger, so much so that we're seeing experts rising, for example, like Juyeon's hubby and Walter's wife. So I want to ask you, starting from Yoon, what do you think are some of the driving factors behind our generation's great interest in this type of shopping?
Well, there are many convenient secondhand trading platforms available here in South Korea, like the Carrot One, as you may know. The MZ generation highly values cost effectiveness, and they believe that if a product offers high performance at a low price, it's fine to buy it secondhand. It's practical to buy quote-unquote used items for things that don't need to be new.
Right.
There's also a growing awareness that recycling helps the environment. It also fosters a sense of community through peer-to-peer interactions and exchanges. Here's an interesting story. I once heard of a couple who met through second-hand trading.
Wow.
And eventually tied the knot.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
And you know what? My husband met someone through second-hand guitar trading, and now he received tutoring lessons from that person.
That's amazing.
It is indeed. So these days, some can actually meet their significant other or teacher through second-hand trading platforms.
Wow, so it's not just about saving money. Of course, the platforms have made these shopping methods more accessible, but it can also help protect the environment. And also, if you want to meet your significant other or your lifetime partner, it may work, as Juyeon mentioned. Now, what do you think are some of the other reasons why, Walter?
Well, I think especially with thrift stops, like used items such as clothes have become really trendy. People like vintage as well. You get a lot of people going to the even like the older stores where they have all the vintage clothes, and that's coming back into fashion as well. Polaroid cameras as well. For some reason, that has become a trend that's coming back. And at one point, we did talk about this on the show not too long ago. A lot of MZers are also using old phones as well because they want to get away from their smartphones and they want to get on just contacting people rather than having to use a smartphone. So all of the old stuff is coming back into fashion, which is great because in Korea, at one point, it was sort of a bad thing to buy secondhand. Like you don't, like in other Western countries in Australia, secondhand is very common. But in Korea, it didn't seem like it was a big trend until recently. And like Jihyun mentioned also, the cost effectiveness. Like I will add, given the current situation with inflation, people are turning to, everything's expensive. Everyone's turning to what they can buy within a budget. And sometimes that's on these secondhand platforms.
Now, I think that you mentioned a very good point. I think that the reason why the younger generation is more into secondhand shopping is because of their changing perspective towards used items, right? So let's talk a bit more about that, Chia.
Yes. If you look at the past, in the past, people often felt uneasy and negative about buying those used goods. But these days it's totally different. Now, people's perception has changed a lot. Many now see buying used goods as environmentally responsible. People appreciate the unique charm and even the history that often come with second-hand items.
Right, so they're definitely becoming more cherished or valued, these second-hand items when compared to the past. Now, we're talking about second-hand shopping and how that's become a trend among our generation. So to find out whether this is a global trend, we also asked our viewers whether they've bought or sold items at secondhand shops, and if they have, what kind of items? Now, here's what 3 of them had to say. So if we look at the comments, MIMS says, I love getting unique planters from antique stores. My favorite is a frog planter that I am growing something succulent in. Benny says, for me, my younger sister has a second-hand DSLR camera, and this was for her schoolwork. We didn't have a camera before that, so it was a great memory for my younger sister. Leon says, yes, as a K-pop fan, I have used a popular second-hand marketplace app here in Singapore called Carousel to buy some second-hand K-pop merchandise. The benefits are the price is a lot cheaper and most of them are still in really good condition. So looking at our viewers' comments, planters, also cameras and K-pop merchandise, a lot that you can buy on secondhand platforms at affordable prices. Now to expand our discussion after looking at the comments, you guys, as mentioned before, both have experience living abroad. So I want to ask you, was secondhand shopping kind of like a thing when you lived abroad?
It is kind of a common thing to visit. So in the UK, offline or online secondhand stores like Oxfam, we have Oxfam offline secondhand store. It have been very active for a long time. Parents often visit these stores to buy secondhand toys and books for their children, including myself. I remember buying some horse toys several times at Oxfam. I was so into horses. So
horses? Yeah, I was too at one time.
Yeah, I thought I was the only one, but families often visit there with their family stores together on weekends to choose secondhand clothing, furniture, electronics, and household appliances as well. Parents often teach their children, the value of buying items inexpensively at secondhand stores, which not only benefits their kids, but also helps support neighbors in need. And sometimes you can find unique and valuable and precious, sometimes very, very precious items in these stores, almost like discovering artifacts when visiting these secondhand stores.
It kind of sounds like a museum now.
Yeah, you have to dig into it,
Right, so that's how it is in the United Kingdom. Now, anything that you'd like to add, Walter?
Well, there's 2 things, 2 countries I'll mention. One is Australia, and Jihyun actually did remind me that my mother used to also buy a lot of secondhand furniture and refurbish it and then sell it. So that's the sort of thing that is also very common in Australia, is that you can redo things up, you can refurbish it, and then obviously get more than what you paid for. But interestingly, in Japan has the largest second-hand trading platform. As part of environmental activism, they actually showcase a fashion show in November featuring outfits created from clothing contributed to by ordinary users.
That's so cool.
So promoting a fashion show with these so-called new clothes, but they're actually second-hand clothes. So that's quite interesting that people do that.
Right, a lot of interesting, fascinating examples. Now, to find out even more, we're now going to invite a Gen Zer living in the United States to talk about secondhand shopping. We'll be right back after the break. Right, so today we're joined by Linda Tapia, an American Gen Z who's living in San Francisco. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Great. Good morning. Lovely to have you. So our first question for you, Linda, is have secondhand stores also soared in popularity among millennials and Gen Z in your country, that is the United States?
Oh, yes. I feel like everyone I know from my generation, we're all going to thrift stores and secondhand shops. I mean, when I get together with my friends, we're all like, we should go thrift shopping. It's an activity. It's something to do. And it's become so popular, I feel, because of social media. We see a lot of people finding these beautiful pieces of clothing through a secondhand shop. And so it kind of becomes like a scavenger hunt, trying to find a bit of treasure out in these shops. And I think it's so great because we're repurposing these items, and it could be from clothes to furniture. Just about everything in my apartment has been repurposed. And it hasn't always been like this. You know, growing up, we found something really cute at a thrift store. We wouldn't actually say we got it at a thrift store. So it's really nice to have a different perspective on it.
So Linda, how do consumers engage in second-hand shopping in your country? Do they primarily use stores, online applications, or websites?
I feel for clothing, we mainly go to second-hand shops because you never know how something's gonna fit. But if we're gonna buy some furniture, I personally use Facebook Marketplace and talk to the person selling their item directly, get more information about it. Also, there are online stores like Mercari is a very popular place to get some really nice like leather goods or other type of clothing. And it makes it easier to find something specific on online sites, because sometimes if you go to a store in person, you might not find anything that you like.
You've actually quite surprised me when you said that basically everything in your apartment is either secondhand, and you have a beautiful apartment from what I can see. So it's very amazing that you can actually repurpose a lot of things and still make it look as beautiful as your apartment. But so it seems like you do a lot of shopping. Do you have any tips for successful buying or even selling secondhand items?
I think if you're trying to get rid of items as quickly as possible, get it out at a fair price. But if you know you have something valuable, do price it a little bit more. Another thing is to do your research on your items and things that you want to buy, especially for higher end items, because you don't want to be buying something that is fake. And then also, don't deposit money to people you haven't met in person if you're doing if you're trying to purchase something through like a marketplace, like on Facebook. And always ask questions if you're not sure if you're gonna like a product. Like if I'm shopping on Mercari, I'll ask for more pictures or maybe more dimensions on like a jacket or a shirt. And also, it might be a hit or a miss. Oftentimes I go to a secondhand shop and I don't get anything because I don't want to also buy more things that just going to take up space in my small apartment.
Great. Oh, very well noted. Some good advice. All right. Thank you so much, Linda, for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Lovely. So doing research, asking a lot of questions are some of the great advice that our interviewee gave us. Now, expanding on this, what should we be mindful of when buying or even selling items on these secondhand platforms?
We have to be always careful. When buying and selling secondhand items, it's important to observe etiquette between the parties and avoid excessive bargaining. You know, direct transactions are safer than shipping, as you can inspect the items in person. And it's also wise to be cautious when dealing with electronic devices in order to prevent potential disputes later on. Always keep records of communications and agreements to protect yourself. Remember, trust and transparency, secondhand transactions. But if you need any advice, just DM me, you know, or my hubby.
Yeah,
if you need any help.
She's definitely a secondhand shopping shopping professional.
I am.
I can see that based on our discussion today. Now, what about you, Walter?
I don't know what else I could say. She said basically everything that I think that you need to do, but especially when it comes to thrift stores, obviously the reason why they're probably in there is because there is a defect within it. So you can probably, like Ji-hyun said, maybe not bargain so much, but you can always make sure you're looking out for maybe what's wrong with the item and take a closer look. So if you go into thrift stores, that's the best kind of way to buy secondhand, I think. When it's online, it's a little bit more difficult. You don't know if, you know, some people aren't a little bit dishonest about it. It's like your resume. You put something on there that's really, really high. Like,
what a metaphor.
Yeah, it's a very good metaphor. We always are like, oh yes, this is in perfect condition. But yeah, you just got to be a bit more careful online. But I always recommend going and actually seeing the product before actually buying.
Right, I think that it's never too bad to be careful. Right?
Yeah, I think
well, I hope that our discussion today helps those potential shoppers who are planning to visit thrift stores or secondhand platforms. And that's all the time we have for today. But NewsGen is here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks today to Kwon Ji-hyun.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Lovely to have you. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And thank you everyone for watching. Hope you have a great weekend. We are News Generation.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토